Welcome to spring. Who's seen a crocus so far? I've seen one. All right. This weekend is the time of the vernal equinox, one of the seasonal balance points of the year. We live, as we know, on a tilted planet. Our times of sunlight and darkness flow unevenly across our days, changing through the arc of the year, except in those rare and fleeting moments we name as equinox, when sunlight and darkness are for just a breath of time, held in balance. And so this weekend we rest for a moment at a balance point, a time to still our busy selves, to pay attention as the light expands to match the shadow energy, and we hover in the space of duality. This is a time we prepare to shift direction, moving out of the darkness of winter into a time of light, days of long sunlight as the air stirs with warmth, our energy rises. We rise from our winter isolation to be out and about in the world. These days of early spring are a time of turbulence, of cleansing winds that challenge our stability even as they may be clearing the way for something new. A time to live into our courage and to attend to our patterns of connection and community. This is a time of courage and care as we continue to create the future together. The nature of being human is an ongoing balance between separation and connection, between individualism and community. This is true from the moment we're born, when we emerge as a separate individual into the connections of family and tribe, history and tradition. Human development is a constant balancing act between self and community, between self-determination and belonging, as we create our identity as a self in connection, weaving individual choice and collective belonging, creating a pathway of courage and care. Last Sunday, Benjamin Van Dyne was a guest in this pulpit, and he told the story of his own journey of individuation and belonging, from Unitarian to Episcopalian, and in that story there were several embedded assumptions from his personal experience growing up as a Unitarian Universalist child. But a few people asked me about the sermon because it was very powerful, since if you are not a student of UU history, some of the assumptions may not have been entirely clear. And Benjamin's story is a great example of the balance of individual choice and the power of belonging. So I'm using his sermon as a starting point today to shed light on this common human dilemma and the journey of courage and care. Benjamin began with the story of his mother's departure from the conservative, doctrine-based religion of her childhood, moving into what she experienced as the liberating freedom of Unitarian Universalism. UUism is a non-doctrinal faith. We do not base our religious belonging on any one source of truth, nor on any prescribed set of beliefs. You might sometimes hear it said that UUs can believe anything we want, and Benjamin used the terms freedom to choose as a sovereign right and the right to absolute self-determination. His depiction of the UU faith, however, is a bit of a simplification of something that is actually very complex and compelling. Our faithful religious commitment to shared values, our belonging, our covenants of relationship, the inspiration of many sources, and radical inclusion undergirded by the responsibility of freedom of belief. In fact, as stated in the bylaws, I don't usually read bylaws from the pulpit, but as stated in the bylaws of our Unitarian Universalist Association, rather than a set of predetermined beliefs, our, quote, primary sources of inspiration are our own direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder, which open our hearts, renew our spirits, and transform our lives. We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values. Our guiding documents go on to state that, quote, congregational freedom and the individual's right of conscience are central to our Unitarian Universalist heritage. Congregations may not require that members adhere to a particular creed, end quote. So rather than a single doctrine or a single sacred text, we draw on many sources of wisdom and inspiration, and each individual is responsible for their own beliefs about ultimate reality based on their learning and their own direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder. That is freedom of belief and the right of conscience. The right of conscience, however, is not the same as the right to absolute self-determination. In fact, I believe that every human can exercise the right of conscience, even if they live in circumstances that reduce their resources or constrain their options for self-determination. And there's nothing simple or easy about it. I find that the Unitarian Universalist way of belief, relying on our own learning and experience rather than an established doctrine, requires a high level of internal honesty and courage, and is not at all an easy way out of religious commitment. So what do I love most about this challenging faith tradition? Part of what I love is the freedom of belief. When I look out from the pulpit in any of our congregations, I'm fully aware that one person might practice Buddhism, another may follow the teachings of Jesus, another may follow the heritage of Judaism, the ancient Persian Zoroastrian faith, Hindu, Jain, Muslim, along with the atheists, humanists, agnostics, pagans, and Wiccans, and more. I probably missed some. And we not only tolerate that diversity, we encourage and support it with genuine interest and acceptance. I describe myself as an earth-centered mystical humanist, and those beliefs have been part of my own evolving faith journey. We are united not by a commonly held belief, but by a set of values freely embraced, and by a covenant to be in a relationship that honors each individual and that makes our collective well-being a priority. And what else do I love? I love that this UU community of care and connection welcomes seekers and newcomers, embracing them for their whole selves, whatever their unique mix of heritage and identity, whatever their gifts and needs. Our connection is grounded in our UU values as we rise to the challenge of justice and equity, embracing the richness of pluralism, acknowledging the interdependence, practicing generosity, and as we work for the transformation of the world. We call that JETPIG. Justice, equity, pluralism, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. Sorry, I shouldn't go off script. Courage is our resource as we live faithfully into our values, centered in the power of love, informed by our own freely embraced beliefs, shaping our actions and embodying those values and beliefs in our day-to-day lives. This is not an easy path. It is a path best followed in caring community, which is the balancing counterpart to freedom. In Unitarian Universalism, we create and sustain our communities of faith. We keep the fire burning to support and manifest our courage in a collective form. Our way of faith requires that we balance and integrate the power of our individual self-determination and our belonging in community, balancing and integrating courage and care so that we may live into the promise and possibility of our faith. That balance and integration is a lesson of the equinox, courage and care in balance, and a constant dance of mutual support. Courage and care in balance is a lived reality in this congregation. In the early months of this year, your Healthy Relations team sponsored a series of conversations. We call them sharing circles, asking about the strengths, the concerns, and the hopes you hold for this congregation. 43 people participated, nearly half the congregation, and the responses clearly reflected the high value you place on courage and care. As you mentioned, quote, people who are smart and caring and want to make the world a better place, who are willing to grow and question, who wear their activism out loud, people who work to make this a better world with more fairness and equity. This is a religious community where members may have, quote, serious thoughts and try to figure out this complicated thing, life and community with each other. And it's all about the hope and the community the people and the values we share. Your sharing in the circles clearly reflected your love of this community of courage and care. Our sense of self, our individual lives are based in our values, the search and discovery of the core commitments of our lives. And when that individual search is supported by a community of connection and care, a community of presence and hope, that provides the essence of balance and integration we need to live into the courage as we strengthen the human bonds of belonging that support our whole and essential lives. Unitarian Universalist congregations were created intentionally by people who were seeking just this type of religious home, a caring community that honors individual worth, dignity, and the right of conscience, supporting the courage of each member to live into their values in every hour of every day. Each congregation is a self-supporting nonprofit corporation governed democratically by its members, preserving the spirit of independence while joined in association with 1,000 other congregations in common cause. Each congregation is sustained by the work, the commitment, and financial investment of its members. This congregation, founded in 1958, has grown through the years as a community of heritage, of vision and inspiration, of connection and commitment. And through those years, through challenge and change, struggle and success, UU Catskills has persevered with worship and programs, community presence and engagement, thanks to the commitment and generosity of its members as a community of courage and care. Much like our friends in the borough, who learned that they needed to share the responsibility to keep the fire burning for light, for warmth, for safety, the task of maintaining the bright flame of our chalice belongs to all of us. There's not someone else who's going to do it. We all share the responsibility to tend the fire, to provide the fuel and sweep the hearth, to fill the lamps, and to pass the heritage along to coming generations, who we can hear in the background. In that way, the future is warmed by what we share. Love for tomorrow begins with what we offer today. So, the UU Catskills fiscal year begins on July 1st, so each year in March, we ask you, our members and friends, to make your financial commitments for the coming year. Free religion is not indeed free, at least not free of cost. And even with the amazing investment of time and energy of our members, 98% of the money required to pay for the space and the staff of the congregation comes from members and friends of the congregation. To fulfill the promise of each year's budget, we ask for a commitment of financial support from every member at the level that's right for you. There's no judgment about how much you can give. This year, however, pledges overall need to increase by about 6% over last year to maintain fair pay for your amazing staff, Catherine in music and worship, Jane, who's right there in religious exploration, and the quiet behind-the-scenes work of Rita in administration and Jenny in bookkeeping. Bet you didn't even know Jenny existed, most of you. And to cover the rent, utilities, and other basic costs of operation. We know that some people are in a position to maintain and increase their support of the congregation, while others cannot. And so the board and the pledge team ask that you do what you can to support the congregation in these challenging times. So the pledge campaign to fund our congregation for the coming year opens today, will run for the next 3 weeks. All members are getting an email today with links to the proposed budget and the electronic pledge form on the website at uucatskills.org. If you want to make your pledge right here and now, if you're feeling inspired and you want to keep the flame bright, our treasurer, Kathy Atwell, in the orange vest with the pom-pom, and board member Bruce Wilde behind the tech desk, they will be in the office right back in that corner of the building to enter your pledge online or provide you with a paper pledge form to complete. And Kathy has records of your previous pledge in case you need that information to calculate your 6% increase. I invite you to consider the vital role this congregation plays in your own life and in the larger world in this time of challenge and change. Each of us, there's not someone else, each of us can do our part to sustain this beloved community, to keep the light burning, to keep the fire warm, building on the legacy of the past to assure our presence for future generations. As we move through this balance point of the equinox, we rise on the energy of the growing light, tending the fire of commitment to light our way forward.